I think that when we look at our biological relationships as something that is a living relationship that can grow and change and evolve, and that, we have responsibility in making that happen. I don't want to say that it's better, but there's just something there that, that isn't there with friends.
Katie, let it out with Katie. Let it out with Katie Dalebout, enthusiast and curator of people and ideas you need to hear. Welcome back to the podcast. You are listening to Let It Out with me, Katie Dalebout, and thank you so much, as always, for listening and spending so much time with me in your ears. It's amazing. Doing this podcast is my favorite thing to do, and I'm so grateful for the guests and the people who listen and meeting all of you. It's the best, and I'm so grateful that I get to do it. Anyway, if you're new, welcome. This is what I do. This podcast usually comes out on Wednesdays. Think really raw and real, unfiltered, long-form conversations. Sometimes they're 2 hours, sometimes they're 3 hours, sometimes they're less, but they're always a good time, at least for me. All right, today on the podcast, I have a repeat guest, but this guest is someone who came on when I first started doing the podcast back in 2013. Let me just set the scene for you. I had just started this podcast. I maybe had like 4 episodes under my belt, and I met this woman in an elevator in New York City, and I knew who she was. I saw her from across the way, and I knew her by her blog name, which was BexLife.com. So we're in this crowded elevator, and I turned to her and I say, "Hi, Bex Life." And she was like, hi. She was so sweet though, but she was a little bit like caught off guard. And since then we've become great friends. She did my podcast as soon as I got home. We talked over Skype and we kept in touch in the internet sort of a way ever since. And it was so great to have this conversation with her. It's really long, it's really raw, it's really real. She gets into things about her story and her past that she told me after. I think she says this at the end of the interview that she's never said before. And she was like, "I can't believe you pulled these things out of me." But she has a great story about how she was a teen mom and now she has 5 children. And she is just so wise about parenthood and motherhood and body image and health and wellness and entrepreneurship and just so many things. And her family story is crazy. It's so fascinating and interesting, and you'll hear all of it, and I don't even want to spoil it, but she's just an inspiring person and one of my favorite people in general. She's giving some really grounded advice on parenting and motherhood. We talk about spirituality and religion quite a bit. It's just an interesting episode, and I hope you really, really enjoy it. All right, I want to get right into that with Bex, but first I have to thank our sponsor, Aptiv. Aptiv is such a cool app, you guys. I love it. It's like the Netflix for fitness classes, and I love me some fitness classes, but you can also, use it at the gym for elliptical and treadmill running and running outside. It gives you these workouts with really great music. It's not, like stock music. It's actually like really good music. And you can curate that. There's 100+ classes that are added each month. And there's a variety of classes. You can do yoga. You can do a short one, a long one, an easy one, a medium one, a hard one. They're great. So if you want to try Aptiv, you can try it for free for 30 days, which is amazing. You might as well, right? You just have to use the code LETITOUT. So you just go to aptiv.com and enter the code LETITOUT at checkout. That's aptiv.com. Again, it will be in the show notes, but here's the thing. This is how it's spelled, just in case you're wondering, because I keep spelling it wrong. It can be very confusing, but it's AAPTIV.com, or, just go to the show notes, but make sure you use Let It Out at checkout. Okay, here's the thing. After this interview with Bex, there's a mini interview because another sponsor of the show, something I just discovered and I'm so into, it's this all natural medicine. And the really, really cool thing about it is you're going to hear all about exactly what it is. It's called Genexa Health. And I'm really excited about this. They are actually giving my listeners a 15% off code. So if you want to try this amazing medicine for if you have a cold or the flu and there's a stress relief formula, you're going to hear all about it because one of the founders of the company is on the podcast. Right after Bex, you're going to hear this little mini interview with him, and he's amazing. His name is David. We really hit it off. We're going to be friends now. He's amazing. So, okay, 15% off if you do want to try that. And the code, the link, to get to that will be in the show notes as well. So use that link, and then to get the 15% off, you just use the code Katie15. So that's my name. Hi, I'm Katie. Use Katie15 to get 15% off your purchases with Genexa Health. So you'll hear more about what Genexa Health is in the interview at the end. So stick around for that. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to hear from Bex. We have this really long, beautiful conversation. Honestly, one of my favorite podcast interviews I've ever done in my life. And then after that, stick around for David's little interview. We're going to chat. It's super quick, and you'll get to learn about Genexa Health, see if it's something you might want to try. If not, that's fine, but just check it out. And then right after that, I'm going to come back to tell you who's coming up on the podcast next week, and just get ready because it's something I'm really, 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 really excited about, and I want to tell you. And I'm going to tell you what the emoji for the episode is, so you'll definitely want to stick around for that. So enjoy my conversation with Bex, and I'll talk to you with David, and then again after that. Well, welcome back to the podcast, Bex. I can't believe that you're here, and it was over about 4 years ago now that we met in an elevator, and I said, "Hi, Bex Life," and totally freaked you out.
It didn't freak me out. I was excited to meet the girl in the gold shiny pants.
The gold shiny pants. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it doesn't seem like 4 years ago, and so much has happened since then, and I got to see you in person again at my book launch, which was so sweet that you were there, and it was so great to give you a hug. And now you have a book coming out, and so much has happened since then, so it's just so good to have you back here. Thanks for doing the podcast again.
Oh, absolutely. And can we just pause for a second and say how awesome it is that we were both at the Hay House Writers Workshop when we met. Yes. And now you have a published book with Hay House, and mine is coming out next month. That is very, very cool.
It's very cool and very exciting. Yeah. So much good came from that writer's workshop. I met you. I met so many other friends and guests on the podcast. Obviously I got my book deal, but like so many good things happened from that, like even beyond that it had anything to do with the book. So that's, it's so cool. So tell me everything. Catch me up. I want to know about the writing process. I want to know about this book. I really kind of want to maybe start there, but also, catch me up to like what is present for you today.
Well, gosh, since I was on the podcast last, I had another baby, so now I'm up to 5. So that's pretty cool. I adopted, I think, 3 goats, 2 pigs, 2 ducks, and 3 barn cats. So that's going on. So my family has grown quite considerably. And now I'm about to have my book baby, which is far painful than any labor. I have to say it, because it was like one of the hardest and most daunting experiences of my life writing this book. Yeah. And but it was something that I guess had to be done. It was something that my soul was demanding that I do. So it's called You Have 4 Minutes to Change Your Life. And it is a collection of 27 meditations and stories from my life in all areas, grief, relationships, body image, all the things. And I'm teaching people how to meditate on them and how to find their own personal bliss through my experiences and my journey. So I hope everyone loves it as much as I do.
Yeah, I love that. So it's been a labor of love, and you've been working on this book for, I know forever. And I think 4 years ago when we were first talking, were you working on a different book or a different topic?
I was, yeah. The book that I went into Hay House with was, or the Hay House workshop
Yeah.
was called The Accidental White Girl.
Yeah.
And it was a memoir about me growing up and not knowing my biological father and not knowing that my biological father was Black. And I was raised in a white household and told that I was white my whole life. And I didn't have confirmation of the real story until I was 32 years old.
Wow.
So that's what that book was about. And when I went, so the Hay House Writers Workshop happened right after the father who raised me passed away. It was about a month after he died of cancer. And his passing was what gave me permission to finally tell the story, because it was out of respect for him that I didn't talk about it publicly, because he considered me to be his child. That's what he always told me, and he raised me as such and loved me very much. And I didn't want to disrespect him, or just dishonor him in any way. So I was writing that book, and in that process, my mother found out about it, and she was very unhappy. And the writers' workshop was in May, or June, I forget. And my mother found out in July, and July 29th was the last time that I spoke to her. She just disconnected with me entirely. And shortly after that, out of nowhere, she was on vacation in North Carolina. It was in November. She suffered a massive stroke. And I flew down there with my sister. That was the first time I had seen her since we stopped talking. And I was with her for 10 days, and she passed at the end of that 10 days.
Oh my goodness, I had no idea.
So she passed, and the thing about the book was, and it was so important to me to write that book, and it was important enough for me to suffer that divide in our relationship, because it was a story that I felt like I really had to share. It was very much my story, even though she felt that it was just hers, and I needed to get that out. That being said, being by her deathbed and being there when she passed and feeling her energy leave her body, and I've talked about this before, and it was almost the identical experience that I had with my dad. It was as if when she left her earthly shell, all of the, and I don't want to say pettiness, because it was something that, there was deep hurt, and there were deep issues that we shared and we butted heads on. But it seemed like all this earthly stuff, this stuff that's connected to who we are when we're here, or this life, or our circumstances, in an instant it disappeared, and it was lifted from me. And I felt like I didn't have to tell that story anymore. Not in that way. I didn't have to write the book. While I was there, she was there visiting a girlfriend who she was very deeply and spiritually connected to, and she was part of a writer circle there. And it's these older women they're writers and they're poets, and they're kind of witchy, and they're Reiki masters, and they do all like the full moon rituals. They're like so up my mom's alley. It's my mom's tribe. And one of the women, her best friend, pulled me aside and said, your mother, because I had sent my mom a portion of the book. I wanted her to see it. And I wrote her a letter that she never responded to. But she said, your mother brought that letter and the book to our writer circle.
Oh, wow.
And we told her that it was your story to share, and that she needed to let it go, and she needed to forgive you. And she was ready to do that. Oh. And so that was a conversation that we never got to have because of her massive stroke. She was completely paralyzed and unable to speak. She can only communicate by blinking her eyes. So she did get short messages out to us, but we didn't talk about the book or any of that stuff. There wasn't time, and it wasn't practical. So I wasn't writing that book anymore. That was it. And it was when she was in the hospital, I was talking to my agent. Like, I had all these appointments because, she had a stroke. No one expected this. So I had all these appointments that I was trying to fulfill professionally. And I was still talking about the book. I was talking about it to Huffington Post. I was talking about it with my agent. And I came home and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore. And a couple months later, I was talking to someone, and we were sharing, what healed us. And I was talking about my meditations and the work that I wanted to do, and that I still wanted to tell some of my stories, but only in relationship to how it would serve other people. And they're like, just like write a book about meditations and share some stories. It was so simple. And that's how it happened. So I flipped the script and it turned out better.
Wow, that's really cool. So do you feel now that some of those stories, or your story about identity and race and how you were raised and everything you went through with that, do you think that's a story you might tell in a more traditional way in the future? Or do you think you've kind of processed it in a way on your own and it maybe doesn't need to be shared? How are you feeling about it now?
I think the issues, like right now, when asking me in this moment, the issues about the race stuff and me identifying as a certain race or not feeling belonging, that's my story right now that I talk about when it comes up and it's relevant and I think it's going to serve. I talk about it. But the bigger story, I think that what connects me to other people is that sense of not belonging, or that sense of not being good enough, or the sense of being so different that you're an outcast or you're unacceptable. And that's how I connect with people. So I tell that part of the story because I grew up in a town that was segregated, and I heard the N-word all the time, used by my schoolmates as young as kindergarten. And this was in New Jersey. I wasn't like in the deep South. Like this is New Jersey, working class town. And it was confusing for me because I knew that I was different and I knew that I looked different and people pointed it out. But I got a different message at home. And then I got a different message at church. And, I can go to church and feel like everybody's one and we're all loved. And, it doesn't matter if we're different because we're all the same on the inside and we're all God's children. Like you have this direct connection to God. You're special. You're infinite. Like those were the messages I was getting from church and from my parents. But then I would go out into society and it would be very different. And I think that happens with people when, they're overweight or underweight, when they speak a different language or they have an accent, when they look different for any reason. That is universal, that sense of, wanting to belong and then, not always feeling like you do. So maybe I'll tell it in that context. I don't know. I can't predict the future. I'd love another book deal though. So if you want to help me with that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Well, if agents who are listening, Bex is available to write a second book. What about your birth father? Did you found out who he was? Did you actively seek him out? Is he part of your life now?
So another very, I guess, serendipitous thing that happened is I did the DNA test with Ancestry.com, and I got the results while I was at the hospital with my mother. So that confirmation came in just a few days before she passed. Wow. And I read them alone in the middle of the night, and it said, you're 40% African, and then some other, like Nigerian, and there were some other African countries thrown in there, and then English, Irish, my mother. So what happened almost immediately after getting those results is that I started to get contacted by other family members. So not only did I find my father's family, living in Detroit, all black, from his side. I also found my mother, who was adopted. I found her entire birth family on both sides, her mother's side and her father's side. Yeah, it was really amazing. So I have not yet pursued finding my biological father. I know his name. I have a phone number. I don't know if he's living or not. I know I have brothers and sisters, at least one brother and one sister. And I haven't pursued that because I think that, to be very vulnerable and honest, I don't think I can take another rejection, because he doesn't know about me. And but it has been interesting meeting other parts of my birth family because I've never had family. I've never known anyone that looked like me. And I have half sisters. I have my mom, but they look so different from me. So it's, and even my kids, they look more like their dad. They look like me. So it's been a really cool experience seeing people who look like my mom. And it's funny because my whole life kind of knowing that my dad wasn't my dad, this tall, blonde, Swedish gentleman with blue eyes, like he clearly, like he couldn't have made me. Kind of knowing that, but being told a different story. I kept telling myself that it didn't matter. Even up until really recently, saying like, my biology doesn't matter. I had these people who really loved me. They weren't the greatest parents. They always didn't do the right thing, but they did love me and they tried their best. But I'm starting to feel more and more like the biology is important. And I think that there's a spiritual bond that comes with that genetic bond. And I wasn't able to, feel it completely in my life, and my mother never did. And I would be okay with it never happening because I feel very fulfilled and I feel very loved and I'm surrounded by an amazing family that I've created. But there are missing pieces. There are that I'd like to explore when I'm ready.
That's really interesting. It's really interesting having this conversation about family, because I think we talk about, especially during the holidays and, which when this is airing now, it's not that season, and that's kind of a couple months in the past right now. But I think there's so much talk about, Friendsgiving and, the exhaustion that comes with being around your family and, wanting to be with the family you create for yourselves. And I think that's really powerful, but it is powerful to hear you mention that biology is important, and it is something that, we should at least be aware of and grateful for. And not to say that the family you create or the family that, loves you regardless isn't as important, but they're both important maybe. And that's just interesting to hear.
It's, it's the family. What I'm learning as I get older and I step more into more self-confidence, a person who feels like she knows something about something, I'm starting to learn that your biological family is in a way a family you create too. Like you create those relationships, you nurture them, you feed them with honesty and integrity and compassion. I've struggled a lot with the people that I'm connected to biologically, especially my older sister who was struggling with addiction and went into a very dark place after my mother died and is now 2 years clean from alcoholism. I struggled a lot with our relationship, and I was ready to chalk it up as like, it's just never going to work. Like we're just never going to connect. We're too different. And that biology held us together, thank God, because now we have a very real relationship that we have to nurture and work on. And I think that when we look at our biological relationships as something that is a living relationship that can grow and change and evolve, and that, we have responsibility in making that happen, it's even, I don't want to say that it's better, but there's just something there that, that isn't there with friends. And there's been time in my life when I couldn't be with my mom and we couldn't meet on that level. Like we just couldn't get along, and we would stop speaking for long periods of time. But when it worked, it was like magic because there's all the elements. So I'm big on family, and I want to keep them close. I'm never going to write anyone off again. I almost lost my mother without seeing her ever, so yeah.
Yeah. That's such a good story. So the conversation growing up then, I'm just so curious, did your mom just tell you that your stepdad was your dad and clearly you didn't look like him? Did you start asking questions? You said you found out that your biological father was Black when you were 30. Yeah. How did you find that out?
Well, my mother, the story isn't, and why she didn't want me to write the book, was that I was the product of an affair. She was married to the man who raised me, and she got pregnant with me, and they decided that, she told him right off the bat, she said, this baby is going to be half Black. What do you want to do? He said, we're going to give the baby up for adoption. She agreed. So they hid the pregnancy from family, from neighbors, from even my older sister who is 10 years older than me. And so they hid the pregnancy, and they planned to give me up for adoption. And they had, they were planning to deliver at a Catholic hospital that was far away from where we lived. So I don't know if it was divine intervention or what happened. All the paperwork was signed. My mother ended up having an emergency C-section with me and was in terrible distress. So she almost died. I almost died. It was a very dramatic delivery. And but when I was born, it was very apparent that I was a mixed race baby. The nurses whisked me away. My mother didn't see me, and they took me to the nursery. And the adoption was going as planned. My father, before leaving the hospital, asked to see me, my dad, and the nurses advised against it. She's like, "This is not your baby. You shouldn't see her. It just complicates things." And he's like, I just want to see her once before, we go. So they agreed to let him hold me. And he said the only time he's ever talked about any of this with me, because he insisted that I was his child from day one, he said that, and this is quoting him, Jesus spoke to me in that moment and told me that you were mine and you were mine to keep and take care of. And that's the end of the story. That's it. Like, that's all he gave me. He's like, and that's it. And he named me Rebekah. It was a biblical name. My middle name is Lynn, after his middle name, because my mother didn't have a part in it. And he decided that we're taking me home. And of course it was to my mother's delight, because she didn't want to give her baby away. And that was it. They went home and told everyone that I was theirs. And growing up, I got taller and had tan skin and curly hair, and I grew taller than everyone in my family, including my father. And I had my little white sister that was his, and it was really awkward. And it put us in a lot of awkward circumstances. And I think that my parents maybe should have discussed it with me. But they just said, no, you probably just look like, your grandmother or from the side of the family that we don't know, because my mother was adopted. They would say things like that. So, but it was rough. Once I hit my teenage years, I knew. I identified as Black. All of my friends were Black. The culture that I immersed myself in was Black culture, and I didn't. And I think that was in part because I was I wasn't accepted by my white classmates and my friends. So it was, I was accepted by the Black kids in school, and but it was unconfirmed until 32 years old, when I confronted my mom and said, "You have to tell me or we can't go forward."
Wow. What a fascinating, interesting story. And it's so great that you're able to, it's clear, like you said, you don't necessarily have to tell it in the way you just told me in your book or in a memoir at this point. Maybe in the future, it's, like I said, fascinating. I would definitely read it. But it's cool that, what you got from that experience brought you to the work that you do now, of just not feeling like you fit in. And I don't have a, exact story to that at all. However, I can totally relate to that feeling of not feeling, like you're enough or fitting in. And that is such a translatable sentiment,
Yeah, I mean, it's not fun being a misfit. It's romanticized to be different, to be an outsider. But I remember very vividly sitting in 6th grade class, and there was a lot of stuff going on in my life. I mean, when your story starts out that way, the household isn't right. So there was a lot of there was poverty. There was verbal abuse. There was neglect. There was a lot. My mother wasn't happy. She felt trapped in a place. She left several times, and we were raised by my older sister at some points. There was a lot going on that led to me, having anxiety, severe depression. I was suicidal as a young teen. This feeling that nothing was stable and I had no place was so strong that I didn't want to be there, or here, on earth. And I remember sitting in class in 6th grade, and it was really in the middle of when things got really bad, and I had just gotten home from a group home that I'd been placed in because I had attempted suicide when I was just turning 11. And I'm sitting in class in front of a girl named Shannon, or in back of a girl named Shannon, and I was looking at her long blonde hair, and she always just looked so pretty, 6th grade pretty, long blonde hair, and her clothes were always adorable, and she had these beautiful freckles and this round face. And I was sitting there thinking, what's it like to be Shannon? She must have no problems. She's so pretty and everyone loves her. And she must go home. And her dad was a police officer and her mother was a stay-at-home mom. And I would fantasize about her life all the time, sitting in back of her. And it makes me sad to think that I just felt like because of who I was or where I came from or what I looked like, I would never be acceptable. And, you know, intellectually, I know different now, but there's pangs of that. And that's what I draw on when I'm trying to create a meditation for someone for anxiety or for grief or for loss or for bullying. I've done them, or for body acceptance. Like, all of these things stem back to me, or go back to me feeling, you know, that there wasn't a place for me and I needed to create that place for myself. Wow. And that was my saving grace. Like, prayer and meditation allowed me to be in a space where it was me and God and no one else, and that was all that mattered. Mm-hmm. And the greatest gift that my mother ever gave to me was telling me that I had a direct connection with God, and that no man, no minister, no guru could ever come between that. And when I talked, he listened, and he could listen to my heart even when I was silent. So that made me feel, in my weakest moments, powerful, or at least that I had enough that I could sustain. And that's where I go when I meditate. Even in my little 4-minute ones, that, like, my funny little ones that I put on YouTube, like, I'm going there. These are the things that healed me. So, as simple as they seem.
So growing up and everything you went through, you know, from the age that you were 11 on to your teenage years, what were your tools then, and how did you find meditation and prayer? Was that something that your mom was always into? You said that, you know, at the end of her life, she was, you know, in this writers group and into, you know, the sorts of things that we're into now. But did you grow up that way, or how did you find that?
So prayer had been a part of my life as an everyday thing from the time that I can remember. My mother was a spiritual seeker. She was someone who was always exploring and trying new things in art and spirituality and religion. And she and my dad both, I guess it was right before I was born, became born again. And I don't know how much she really wanted to do that. And it was her idea.
What does that mean?
They were born again Christians, and we belonged to an evangelical church. So they were rebaptized into the Christian faith. Okay. And I think it was more of my dad's idea than my mom's. I think that he was more enthusiastic about it. But she went all in, and I was raised in the church, and there was a lot of good stuff that came out of that, and a lot of confusing things that even today I'm really not down with, but that's, you know, it's fine. But I got a lot out of it, and one of those things was that lesson that, you know, I had this direct connection to God. Our first church didn't even have a minister. It was basically just a big Bible study where we just went and talked about the Bible and debated, or the adults did, and the kids got to watch. Kids were always very much a part of the service, and it was very cool. And as far as the praying goes, it wasn't something that we did at night. We didn't kneel down at night and, you know, say a prayer. We didn't memorize prayers. We didn't ask for things. It was really about this conversation that you always have with an ever-present God that's always there to support you. So when I was 15, I was working in a used bookstore with my mother, helping her clean it out and move it to a new location. And I found a copy of Be Here Now on the bookshelf. And I had no idea, by Ram Dass. I had no idea. Oh my gosh.
I just went to the Ram Dass retreat in Hawaii.
Did you? How was it?
It was amazing. He was so sweet and nice.
Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. So
That's so funny.
So I found this book, and it was beautiful. It was purple, and it had all these crazy drawings in it. And because I was, I guess, born a spiritual seeker, and I'd grown up in that environment. And even though my parents were evangelical Christians, we were very much exposed to everything. We had the Bhagavad Gita in the house, and, different Buddhist texts. And our house was always, it was kind of like a grand central station for every type and color of person. So I saw a lot, and I experienced a lot. And in this true Christian tradition, what I felt a true Christian was, and what my parents explained to me, is that, we're all God's children, and we have no place to judge, and it's our, we're just here to love each other and to learn from each other. So I found this book by Ram Dass, and I didn't have money to buy it, so this would be like me not practicing my Christian values, and I shoplifted it. I stole the book, and I just had to have it, and I think he would forgive me, but I just had to have it. And I took it home, and I devoured it. I was so fascinated. I would copy the pictures and draw them in my sketchbook and copy the verses, and it introduced me for the first time to a different way of praying, a different way of looking at God, a different approach to prayer, which I started calling meditation. I never studied with a guru. I didn't know that you were supposed to sit down on a pillow for 20 minutes or an hour. I didn't know that people, traveled to India to learn how to do it, or Bali. I just thought that there was a way that I could talk to God with, but also turning it in on myself and talk to myself as a part of God and reflect on who I was. Because before then, prayer was always me talking to this outside entity, asking him to take my pain away, or asking for guidance, or just talking, giving him my gripes at the end of the day. But now it was about me for the first time. And that was exciting to me as a teenager. Like, okay, like something could be about me, and like there's this idea of self-exploration and personal growth. And I have, without fail, because it's just part of the conversation I have in my head, prayed or meditated every single day of my life since I've been 15. So it's almost 24 years now. Oh my gosh, saying that's like, wow. But it's just something that I do. Whenever there's a conflict or something that I need to, a time that I need to find peace, or a time that I need to prepare myself, I sit down and I have an active conversation, and I look for guidance and I ask for guidance. So that's what meditation is for me. And that's what I try to tell other people, is that it doesn't have to be one way. It's just about getting quiet, having the important conversations, allowing the thoughts, approaching everything with curiosity, taking time for yourself, connecting to yourself, because when you connect to yourself, you connect to the entire universe.
Mm. Wow, that's so great. So is that what really got you through, those younger years of, after you were 11 and not feeling like you fit in with your family or your community? Was it turning to meditation?
It was the meditation is a vehicle, it's a tool for me to find connection. So yes, it was meditation for me that healed me or helped me. I don't even want to say healed, because it's something that's ongoing. It's a maintenance plan that I'm on. But feeling that, knowing that, another lesson that my mother taught me was that God loves me as is. He loves me as I am, as he made me. And he doesn't make mistakes. Like, I'm sure people have heard that before. Like, God doesn't make mistakes. And when I very much felt like a mistake, because I had that, like, I don't belong, maybe my dad's not my dad, maybe this was an accident, I see this causing turmoil, I reminded myself constantly that no, it's not a mistake. I have a purpose. I have a reason. And God loves me as is, as I am, even with pimples, even with this awkward body, even with these, sinful thoughts. So like, he loves me as is. And it carried me when I hated myself and I hated my circumstances. I'm like, okay, there's something about me that's lovable. There's something about me that's worthy, that's calling me to another day. And I'm going to give it one more shot. I'm going to give it one more day. Mm-hmm. And even now I revisit that same conversation, when I feel like it's just all too hard and it's all too overwhelming. It's like, but there's still some purpose here. I have to continue that journey. And I don't think that anyone really knows their full purpose or their full, mission, or they don't complete the mission until they're dead. I think when you're dead, like, that's it. Like, okay, this was your time. And that's when you reach enlightenment, and that's when you know all the things to know. And until then, you just do the work. And in doing that work, there's so many moments to be joyful and to be present and to be, fully engaged in this really, really awesome, blessed experience that we have. So.
Wow. Yeah. What about losing your parents at a young age? That is something that, you know, is obviously challenging, and the circumstances with yours made it even more so. But I think that's something that, you know, I haven't really talked about on this podcast, but so many people have to deal with. What kind of got you through that? Also, I'm sure you turned to your meditation there, but kind of what advice would you have, or how did you, you know, pull yourself through that experience?
I probably didn't do it the healthiest way, to be completely truthful. I was put in a position, I mean, my dad was different. You know, he was suffering with cancer for 7 years. He was very sick. He was very tired, and he was really ready to let go. Like, he was done. And I think, excuse me, we were ready to say goodbye. So it was more of a release and a relief when he passed. And we were okay with that. I miss him. You know, I wish he was here to see my kids and see them grow. And I get sad when I think that, you know, I'm not really going to see him in the same way again. But it was okay. Like, that was okay. My mother was very different. It was a shock. She was healthy. She was like she was living life. Like, when she passed, we had to go pick up artwork that she had just purchased. We had to cancel a chandelier that she was having commissioned. Like, she was so active and she had so many things going on. We had to dismantle her garden. It was just, there was a lot that she did, and she was really full of life. And there was unresolved things with us. But because my older sister was struggling with alcoholism, and you know, my younger sister, my mom knew, like, she was a single woman who, like, had her own thing going on, and, you know, she really didn't want to be bothered with, like, family stuff. She put me in charge. She named me the executor of her estate, and I went into this mode instantly. And she also asked me to take care of my older sister, and I went into this mode of, like, I was a machine. So I didn't cry at all. I didn't really get to sit and think about it. I went right into planning a funeral and making sure my sister was okay, and you know, dealing with her estate and selling her things and selling her house. And I didn't have any time to mourn or grieve or any of that. And when I did, it was kind of like more this. It was like my body was just so overwhelmed that I would, like, burst out in tears. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't anything that was thoughtful or mindful or me recognizing what was really going on. So I didn't really deal with it well. I think my meditation practice, my prayer practice, was a lifeline that just kept me holding on by a thread. But there wasn't any deep healing around it. And I think that that's kind of something I'm experiencing now, years later. My older sister just got a job. She lost her job as a result of her, she got a DUI, and that's what forced her to get clean. And she just got a job after being unemployed for 2 years. And I feel like I can, even though I shouldn't be responsible in all the things that we say to ourselves as adults, like, we're not responsible for other adults and other people's feelings, I did feel responsible. I did feel like I needed to step into that role that my mother held. And I'm finally able to let go and kind of be like, okay, I can grieve now. I can think about this. I can visit this and sit with it. So yeah. I'm going through it now. So I don't have an answer for you. Yeah. Other than I'm dealing with it now.
Well, I think it's great that you shared all of that and that you're real, because, like, that's what I want this podcast to be, is, like, just these real moments to help people feel less alone, you know, and help me feel less alone. And I think that vulnerability and authenticity is really needed and really great to hear. And to just even hear that you had all of that, or have all of that on your plate when your mom passed suddenly, as a mother of 5 and an entrepreneur and a wife and a friend and someone writing a book during all of that, like, so many things on your plate. I just can't even imagine. So I think just hearing that, and that you're a, you know, normal human being, that it was a lot and that you would burst into tears, I think, I don't know, I find it comforting and cozy, and makes me feel less alone to hear all of that.
The thing is, there's no one way. You know, it would be nice for me to be able to say that I took the time and I honored my grief, and I sat in meditation, and I sat in deep prayer, and I really connected. But none of that's true. The truth is that my busyness kept me alive. like me just kind of filling in the space that I needed, that buffer. So I got pregnant again and I had my fifth baby and I said yes to a book deal, and I kept myself really busy because that's what I needed to sustain myself through that craziness of losing both my parents 7 months apart.
Yeah.
And it's okay that I did that. It really is. And I think that with meditation, people think it has to look a certain way, and then therefore they think it isn't for them. I mean, that's meditation, it's yoga, it's so many different spiritual disciplines that people say, well, that's for her, that's for him, and it doesn't resonate with me. And my message is that, happiness, love, peace, calm, healing, all of the good things in the world, success, financial success, all of these things are really for you. They're for everyone. And when we break down the illusion of what things are supposed to look like or how they're supposed to come to us, then we can start accessing it in a way that works for us.
Yeah.
And that's what I offer with my meditations. Like my way is not the way. It's a way. It's a way that I tried and worked. And I'd love for someone to try it and see if it works for them. If not, go try transcendental meditation. Go try whatever.
Yeah.
Go sit in a forest and be by yourself and don't call it anything.
Yeah.
But know that it's for you. Like that piece is for you.
Oh, I love that so much. And I'm just, I've always been such a fan and supporter of yours. And because you're so real and honest and you're like, hey, this is what works for me. Try it. If not, that's cool. And you're so unattached. And that's why I think it's so attractive to people and so many people follow you. And so taking a step back to when you found that Ram Dass text and, and that's how I feel about Ram Dass and Abraham Hicks and your work and, a lot of the stuff that I've found over the last, 5 or so, more than that now, years I've been a seeker on, into this sort of thing, is that I'll read something or I'll hear something and I'll just be like, oh, yeah, it has articulated something I know to be true. Like, I don't know why, but deep within me, I just that's true. And so when you found that and had those moments, when did you decide that you wanted to share meditation or share these tools? And when did you start your blog? And I'm sure we kind of covered some of this in our first episode, but tell me again or remind me again.
I've been blogging since 1998 when I was, or 1997 when I was pregnant with my oldest baby. I'm sitting in her college dorm right now doing this interview. It's amazing. I was pregnant with her and I just needed a community. I wanted to find other teen moms. And I joined this website called Girl Pages, like GURL, from Sassy Magazine. And
cool.
And I started sharing my story. So I've always been connected, like, to the internet and the blessing that the internet is. Like, I thank God for the internet every day because I have truly found my people there. So I started that blog.
Me too.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like if people diss it, but I'm like it's such a gift to our generation.
Yes.
So I've always been making websites, doing stuff, and I was getting married and I started my wedding blog and I started sharing my fitness journey and different things I was doing and stories about my family. And because I have no filter, I started talking more about myself and my past and my anxiety, and I got this following. I didn't expect it. I didn't seek it. It was never meant to be a job. But people started following me and connecting with me and asking for more. I really started off as a fitness and wellness blog. And it's a long story that I'm not going to tell, but I ended up getting a TV show. And it was like kind of like right place, right time. Me just having a little bit of courage and being a little bit, audacious. But I got a TV show and it was about meditation and yoga. And they said, do you teach meditation? And I taught yoga. I was a yoga instructor, but I'm like, and I had this meditation practice, but it wasn't traditional. I'm like, sure, I teach meditation. And they said, can you do short ones? And I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I do. And I just took my practice and started talking about it on TV. And because I wanted to continue this online, I started making my my meditation videos. And what was originally 4-minute Tabata, which is a style of workout. It's a high intensity, short burst workout. And I had this series called You Have 4 Minutes, and it was about these workouts. turned into my meditations. And it was, you have 4 minutes to meditate, or for meditation. And because I wanted to, for the SEO purposes, get my audience to start watching the meditation videos too. And it blew up in a way that I was not expecting. And it was like this gift from the universe, because I could finally be like, now I can talk about what I really do. Now I can talk about what I really believe, because I was so scared to talk about my spirituality or say the word God or talk about my anxiety in like really intimate terms. And this allowed me to do that. And it just became so easy. Now I don't have to make these stupid workouts every single week that, like, I'm just tired of telling people, like, there's only so many ways you can teach a jumping jack or a burpee. And I was just over it. And I was like, okay, now I get to talk about real stuff. So yeah, that's the evolution of
That's
my
really cool.
experience.
That's really cool. So with going back to motherhood, I want to talk about that a little bit, because you have so much experience with that. And I want to know, your oldest, like you said, you're in her college dorm room right now. Summer is 2, or
Summer is 5, almost 6. She'll be 6 in 2 months, and Annabelle is 2.
Annabelle is 2.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. It's just like, I feel like you were just pregnant, and I forgot that. It's crazy. But yeah, so you have, so many kids ranging from so many different ages. What was it like, being pregnant, when your oldest, to being pregnant most recently with Annabelle? And what have you learned in between, and, making your family, which I am just so inspired by. Your family is amazing, and I kind of want you to adopt me with the goats.
Come over.
Yeah, I would love that. Let's talk about that in a moment. But what have you learned? Like, what has the experience of motherhood been like for you? And then also, we talk so much about your childhood and the way you grew up. And so, how did you take what you liked and what you didn't like? And kind of, it's a lot of big questions there.
Okay. Well, you know what? I can boil this down. Well, first of all, I was a teen mom, but I was that teen mom who I mean, and I feel this is very universal among teen mothers, and I connect with them so much. How old were you? I was 18 when I got pregnant with Winona, and I was out on my own. And now as a doula, I offer free services to teen mothers, because I just love working with them so much. But so I'm a doula too. There's so many things going on. So so many things, all good things. But I just didn't want to be, because I was so sick of being an outsider, I just wanted to be accepted, and I wanted to just be the best mom that I could be. So I read every book, I watched every television show, I took in all the information that I possibly could, and I was determined to be the not teen mom, not that stereotype that people held about, young mothers. And I think in my just being naive and just being a little bit bold, and it was a little bit of courage and a little bit of just not knowing what I was doing, but thinking that I did. It was a good experience. I really liked being a mom.
Were you scared when you were 18 and initially found out you were pregnant?
No, I should have been, but I wasn't. I wasn't scared. I was excited. My family was very supportive. My parents were it was my ex-husband. My older 3 are from a prior marriage, and they said, is he going to be around? Is he going to support you? And I said, yeah, he's totally in. And they were like, okay, great, you have our blessings. And I was very much supported by them. And I wasn't scared. I fully embraced it. I loved being a young mom. I loved feeling like I was growing up and learning with my little ones, and I loved having that energy and that enthusiasm for life and learning. And I loved loving someone and feeling loved by someone. And I think that this is something very common with mothers, very much so with teen moms, young moms, because they're looking for that love. And it was I felt important. I felt like I had a responsibility and I was doing a good job, which made me feel validated as a good person and as an adult. So I did a good job. I really did. I had Winona. I had Calvin shortly after, 2 years later. Jack was born 3.5 years after that. So my first three, they were all little together, and I felt like they were my little tribe. And I loved being a young mom. It was so much fun, so much fun. And like I said, I didn't know better. I won't say that I didn't know better. I didn't know different.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. Like, thank God the internet, like, and Facebook really wasn't a thing when I was a very young mom, because I didn't fall into that comparison trap. Like, I was able to go on message boards and find my people. I was able to kind of create my bubble. There was definitely no one like criticizing moms. There were no mommy wars. It wasn't like that weird thing that is happening now. So I got to make all my mistakes in private. I got to kind of grow and learn without thinking that I was doing something wrong. It was a beautiful thing. And by the time I was remarried and I had Summer and then Annabelle, it was like, I felt like an expert. I was like, I can do this. It's like no big deal. It's harder now. I'll say that parenting is much harder now. It's like the more you know, the harder it gets. Like the more you know, like how many bad things can happen in the world and in a day and just around the house. It's like you understand the gravity of life and how precious it is and fragile it is. It's like I'm a much more nervous parent now than I was when I was younger.
Really?
I didn't know. Yeah, I just didn't know. Everything was going to be okay. Everybody was, invincible. And I just never thought anything bad could happen to me or my kids. And it was really easy to have a lot of confidence.
Yeah. So I think last time you gave one of the best pieces of advice on my podcast that's always stuck with me about, and it's something that, I tweeted after the episode where you talked about, raising your kids, and you don't raise them to, I don't even remember exactly how you said it, but you're like, you don't raise kids to eat a certain way. You raise them to, know things about nutrition or something. Or the way you said it was basically just to have them be chill. And you talked about body image and modeling good behavior around, your body and the messaging that you have. Did you, I'd love for you to elaborate on that, as well as, with meditation and with the way that you are the spiritual person and, how you're connected. How did that become something that you instilled in all of your children, and how is it a part of the conversation now?
So a quote that I cut out, I think I printed it out and cut it out and put it on my refrigerator when Winona was a baby, was, my father did not teach me how to live. He lived and let me watch him do it. And that informed my parenting from the very beginning. Now, it's not to say that I don't lecture my kids sometimes or a lot, and I don't, have rules and structure and things that and expectations, but it comes very much from a place of, I have a job to do. I'm your guardian, really. I don't have ownership over you. And it was something that my mother told me, like, you belong to God. You don't belong to me. Like, God kind of lent you to me, and I have to give you back. And I'm very mindful of that. Like, I have to give these people back to the world. And when they go out in the world, are they going to not just be good and know how to act and know how to eat and know how to, write a business email, but do they know how to figure stuff out? Do they know how to take care of themselves? Are they discerning people? Do they understand right from wrong from their core values, not mine? Like, I don't want them to be parrots or puppets. I want them to really own who they are. So it's moments like, it's funny, I wrote about it on Facebook the other day, but my daughter, the oldest one, she messed up something. In my eyes, she messed up something. And I got really annoyed, and I texted her and was like, you did this wrong, come home, I'm going to fix it. And she texted me back and was like, no, I got it, I'll figure it out. Like, I know what I'm going to do. And then told me her plan of action. And it was like, I consider myself to be kind of a boss woman in my life. And I can sometimes be intimidating, and I like to be in control of circumstances. And she not only stood up to me, but she was like, your way isn't the best way. I actually have another way that I think is better. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I did it right. Like, she's okay to live out in the world. And, she shows examples of that in so many different ways. Like, just taking ownership and responsibility of her college courses and her homework and figuring out how to pay for school. And she does that on her own with very little help from me, really, like very little guidance. Like, I'm there if you need me, but I'm like the last, means of support. So like, you might have to like fall a couple times before you get, like, I'm not going to let you like completely fall to your demise, but I really want them to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
And I don't, and I don't want little me's. I want people who are going to challenge me and that are going to challenge other, because I'm the toughest one in their life right now, but I'm by far not the toughest person they're going to meet in their life. And I want them to be able to stand up to people and know their value and know their values. So that's important to me in raising kids.
Yeah. Oh, all of that was really wise. What about with meditation? Is that something that you've talked to them about? Is it part of their lives? Is it something that you've modeled?
It's something that they know I do. It's not something that I make them do. I try to teach them mindfulness more than you have to sit and, be quiet or whatever. It's like when they're talking to each other and I hear them going down like to a bad place where they're like bickering or they're fighting over doing the dishes or whatever. And I say, stop, think about what you're saying right now. How does that serve the situation? What kind of response do you think you're going to get by saying what you're about to say? Like, it's that check yourself before you wreck yourself, mm-hmm. which is basically my morning meditation. Like I start with gratitude and, what I want to do during the day and how I'm feeling. And I just check in. That's what I want them to learn. And you can do that sometimes it only takes a few seconds. Sometimes you might have to sit with yourself for an hour, but just sit and think. Like, is it like that, is it kind? Is it, I forget what the whole,
true.
Is it true? Like, all, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, to go through that little exercise with with the babies, like the little ones, it's like, pause, let's take a deep breath. Let's, what Daniel Tiger says on his show, when you feel so mad that you want to roar, take a deep breath and count to 4, like things like that. That's meditation. Yeah. It's stepping back and connecting with the moment and yourself.
Oh, I love that. Another thing, that I really admire about you is, your philosophy with food and fitness and how that's evolved over the years. And you just seem to have such a chill relationship with those things, but you're also so into, you, like you said, you have goats and you live in this, beautiful way with your family and are so connected with your food and the way you guys nourish yourselves, but you're also really chill about it and enjoy food. And that's been a philosophy that I've admired in you over the years and, seen evolve in you even, and I'm sure has evolved in the way that you've, brought up your kids. So can you talk a little bit about your philosophy and how that's changed with you and how it's part of your motherhood?
I truly believe, even though there are obstacles that we encounter that are learning experiences in this world, I feel like there's an ease to life that you can tap into. And that is with eating too. God didn't put us here to suffer, or I don't feel like we were put here to suffer. I think we were put here to learn. And there's many different ways to learn. I think we were put here to be joyful and to experience this world and experience pleasure. And food is part of that pleasure. And I just have to always remind myself that to be in service to joy and to happiness is to be in service to myself in the highest and best way possible. So I was on a little bit of a cupcake diet over the past couple weeks, I have to admit, because my Aunt Kathy made me the most amazing homemade cupcakes ever.
What kind?
They were chocolate with chocolate frosting and a cream filling and Jimmy's like sprinkles on top. It was like a whole thing. It was just so many layers of like stuff that I usually don't put into my body. But over the past couple weeks, like that one cupcake a day was really in service to my joy.
Yeah.
And but conversely, I know that, 4 cupcakes, or actually it's in the same line, 4 cupcakes a day would not be in service to my joy because it would make me sick, or it would cause me to be uncomfortable in my clothes that I like to wear. It would change my body in a way that, wouldn't make me feel at ease. So I, before anything, my mini meditation that I do, before I say yes to a contract, before I enter a new relationship, before I take a bite of food, I ask myself, how does this serve me? And when I'm asking myself that question, a cupcake may serve me in the same way that a vegan, raw lasagna might the next day.
Yeah.
It's just really about where I am in that moment. And, food relationships are complicated. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about having an eating disorder or having really deeply rooted issues with food. All I know is that I've had a lot of stuff in my life, addiction, hurt, depression, anxiety, like pain of loss, pain of rejection. And I know that my reaction to those things and the way that I choose to live my life is what has kept me going and kept me moving towards joy. So food is not any different. It's that, I could be weird about the way I look, just like most people. I could not love my body one day. And I could, eat too much and regret it the same way anyone else does. But it comes back to a conversation instead of a punishment or a judgment. It's like, all right, well, that didn't work. Why did I do that? Am I going to do that again? What was I feeling? It feels like so much work, but it's actually really easy. Like as I'm saying it, it's like all this work that you have to do to connect with yourself, but it becomes a habit and you feel so connected that you just feel really confident in all your decisions. And the food thing, I think it's just a symptom, just like any other behavior that's self-harming. It's just a symptom of something deeper. You got to get to the deeper stuff. You have to have the deeper conversations to heal it.
Yes. Oh, it's so true. When I'm happiest, everything with food in my body is just great and there's no issues. And, when I'm having issues with body image or my clothes fitting differently either way or the way that I'm eating or feeling, it's a sign of something else every single time. And usually I'm not even aware of it because I'm so focused on the food thing that I'm like, oh, what? I'm not even aware that, of course, it's something else in my life. So all of that was articulated so well. We did it. What about with motherhood, though? What about with parenting? Is that something that you've just modeled for your kids? Is that something that you've had to kind of show them?
With the parenting bit, it's hard for me to give. I can talk about my experience. It's hard to ever give parenting advice because I feel like I'm an expert in 5 people. Right. I know my kids. I don't know anyone else's. It goes back to that truth for me. It's that, they're all worthy people who were born with all the wisdom of the universe. It's my job to teach them how to, tie their shoes, look both ways before they cross the street, don't touch the stove. Those things, the worldly things, it's my job to provide that structure and that teaching for. But as far as how to love, how to be, how to understand, how to show compassion, they were born with it. Sometimes they lose it, we all lose it, and they have to be reminded, and they can be reminded by my behavior and my example. My example's always not the best, but it's I try to let them know that I'm always trying my best, and that's all that we can ever be asked to do. So, I mess up all the time. They threaten me sometimes. They're like, we're going to tell people what Beck's life is really like, and the behind the scenes. And I'm like, whatever. People know that I'm crazy. But it's just about just being honest and open and giving them the respect that they are thinking people. They have baby brains in terms of like speech and, what they can actually do and navigate the world, but they don't have baby brains as far as love goes or as far as what it means to be human. So when I speak to them, I have an expectation or I give them the respect that they understand because as a spiritual being, they could be older than me. They could be wiser than me. So I always try to approach them with that. And again, they don't really belong to me. They're God's children, and I have to give them back, and I have to treat them with care, and I have to give them respect as kind of like sisters and brothers in this experience. and not just my children.
Cool.
So
What a healthy way to look at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's not like they never get yelled at and we don't, the breakdowns don't happen, but it's what I remind myself of. It's my reset button.
Yeah.
That's where I go.
So having 5 kids and everything that you do online, what was your writing process like for writing this book, and what was that experience like for you, and how do you feel now that it's out?
I cried a lot. I fit it in when I could. The thing, it's funny because I've always had children. I'll say I was a mom before I was a woman, 100%. So I really don't know another way. So people ask me what are your time saving tips and how do you manage time? It's I don't know. I just do whatever I have to do in the time that it has to be done. It's just, I've always had little people kind of crawling on me, and I've always lived that life. So it was a struggle. I would wake up early, I'd write, I'd stay up late, I'd write, I wait till the last minute, I write a lot. Now that it's done, it feels at one point I wanted to give my advance back and say, forget it. Actually, many points. But it's done now and it feels good and I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
So
I kind of did mine the same way and also had many times feeling that same way. So I think that just maybe is par for the course.
Yeah. I think all writers go through it. And I didn't even consider myself a writer. I was, I'm a meditation guide and, and a mom, and I had this opportunity and I was definitely going to take it, but it's not my first love. Writing is not my first go-to and it is expressing myself. So it was a stretch for me, but it feels like an accomplishment. I'm glad I did it. I'm going to do it again. It's like pregnancy. It was painful, it's done, but you forget, and now I want to do it again. Now I have the bug. So
that's a perfect analogy for it, I think. What are you most excited for people to get from this book, and, how is it laid out, or what do you want people to know about the book who are listening?
My book, the reason I love it so much is because it's something because for me, I'm someone who loves to have tools. I like easy tools at my fingertips. So you could flip to any chapter in this book. You can go right to the one that you need and start from there and totally get it. It's not something that you have to read the whole thing at once. You could bookmark something that you really love and go back to it later. I want people to put this on their nightstand and use it as a go-to a toolkit for spiritual connectedness. So if they're dealing with grief, they could go right to my chapter about grief, read some stories about my experiences, and then there's 3 meditations in the back that they can practice with the book a couple times and then do on their own and recall, whenever they need it. And I just want people to have permission to feel good and to know, again, that it's for them. That there's someone out there that's just as crazy, that's just as scattered, that's just as overwhelmed, that had, a dark past too, and has done dark things and experienced bad stuff. And it's, I'm still very worthy and I deserve everything that I have right now. And I have a lot, and that could, that's for them too.
It's so exciting. I'm so glad that this book exists and that people can have it and that you wrote it. And, Bex, you're awesome, and I'm so glad that you did the podcast. Can we wrap up with some quick-fire questions?
Yes!
Okay.
I'm excited.
So some of these are the same, and some of these are new ones that I have now and just different things, so we'll just do them pretty quick. But tell me your current and just, I'm sure it changes all the time, morning and evening routine. So, the first 3 things you do when you wake up in the morning and maybe the last 3 or 4 things you do before you go to sleep at night.
Okay, so in the morning I wake up and very quiet with a whisper, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. And that was inspired by Baba Wayne Dyer that I love so much. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Depending on how much I need to go to the bathroom, I do a quick 3-point gratitude check. So 3 things that I'm grateful for. And sometimes it's as simple as I'm grateful for this warm bed. I'm grateful for my husband sleeping next to me. I'm grateful for healthy kids, whatever. It could be I'm grateful I have beautiful skin this morning. I didn't wake up with a pimple. So I do the 3 things that I'm grateful for. And then I have a quick prayer. that is, how may I serve? And I get my answer quickly now because I visit this connection constantly. So when you're connected to yourself, your intuition comes very, very quickly, or the message from the universe or God comes very quickly. So it's, how may I serve? And sometimes the answer is like, write a really cool blog, or make a new video, or get on Facebook Live, or, smile at a stranger, be nice to the lady at the post office, even though she's always rude to you. So that's, even though she's terrible. So that's,
she's the worst.
She really is. She really is. But she's been coming around lately. I've been hearing rumors that she's been nice. So I might head back there. So that's my quick routine. And then it's jump into my day. That's, I do all my work and all the kids stuff and everything else.
What about in the evening? What are the last few things you do to wind down and relax and before you go to sleep?
Oh, it's nothing spiritual. My husband and I are, it's really important that I maintain a good relationship with him, like a close, intimate relationship with him. So every single night, no matter what, we spend it together on the couch. We'll put on Netflix or whatever we're binging on at the moment. And we usually kind of pass out and it's like, all right, it's time to go to bed. But every night we spend it together. We connect. We have that connection. We really like each other. I like hanging out.
I love that. What's something you've been really liking watching lately, or any TV show you want to recommend?
The OA. I so jumped on that bandwagon, and it's amazing.
What is it?
The OA. Have you not seen it?
No. This is on Netflix?
Okay, it's on Netflix. You have to watch it. It's part spirituality. It's part near-death experience. It's part afterlife. It's part science fiction. Oh!
Is it like a docu-series?
No, it's a series that's created by the star. She's 29 years old. And
oh my God, the OA. Okay.
Yeah, the OA. And when you find out what OA stands for, you're gonna die.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm so excited. I'm going to start watching after this probably.
Yeah, it's good.
Cool. What about a movie that you've seen recently or this year? Or anything you want to recommend there?
Star Wars Rogue One was so good. Star Wars was so good. I'm a sucker for fantasy and kind of I don't love it so much in books, but for movies, I really like to have fun. And that was one that I really enjoyed. I love science fiction. I love stories and all that stuff.
Hits all your notes. I feel like when the last Star Wars, before this recent one was coming out, I was talking to you on the phone and you were going with your family. So that was just a funny connection. I think maybe we were recording or I don't know, something. So yeah, anyway. All right, so for these next ones, just say top line first, maybe one sentence about them, first thing that comes to mind. What is the greatest lesson you've learned on entrepreneurship?
That it doesn't have to be one way, and that money isn't the only sign of success.
Greatest lesson on self-care?
That you can't be happy or successful without it.
Greatest lesson about motherhood or parenting?
Again, there's no one way to do it, and just lead with love. Lead with love always, and just do your best.
Greatest lesson on relationships?
These are so hard.
I know. It's so hard to boil it down.
You have to be willing to sacrifice. You have to be willing to buy into the idea that you're one, and that what happens to you happens to the other person. And if you don't do that, I don't think it's sustainable.
What are you most excited about this year?
My book actually coming out and being done with that part of the launch, and maybe getting another book deal.
Yay! You heard it here first. Put it out in the universe. What's your favorite part of your life right now?
Seeing my older kids become who they're going to be as adults.
So cool. Well, this was really fun. The name of the podcast has changed from the Wellness Wonderland Radio to Let It Out. So thank you for doing this. Is there anything else that you want to let out? Anything that you wish that I would have asked you about? Anything you never get to talk about that you want to just say right now? anything you want to ask me, anything at all that we missed?
I think that I talked about all the things that I've never talked about. And I'm so grateful that you drew that out of me and we took this course as a conversation. I really, really love that. And the only thing that I really need to let out is that I want people to know how deeply they are loved and how deeply they are needed in this world. If we have one purpose, it's to love, to be loved, to learn, and to teach. And all of us are in this classroom together, and all of us can emerge as teachers. We just have to look for the opportunities to do it. Like, you just are so needed in this world.
That was such a good note to end on. Thank you so much, Bex. I love you. I'm so glad that I met you 5 years ago now, something like that, and that we're friends, and we always will be, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, you guys, that was my conversation with Bex Life. She's amazing. I love her so much. I hope you did too. Now you're going to hear my conversation with David, who's one of the founders of Genexa, and take it away. Thank you again so much for being here, David. He is, for everyone listening, I'm talking to David Johnson, the CEO of Genexa, which is an amazing company that I'm so excited to share with you guys. So can you tell me about your mission and how you came to work for this amazing company, David?
Yeah, so Genexa was founded and thanks for having me. Yeah. Genexa was founded 3 years ago, and the idea was to make medicine healthier. Genexa is unique because it's really focused on the next generation, which is really where the name came from. And the next generation now is so interested in the organic and the non-GMO industry and the growth there. So going from the food sector to the beverage sector to the supplement sector, there was just such an opportunity in the over-the-counter medicine sector to really have the ability to reach out and make product healthier. So the Genexa was founded to remove all of the byproduct and a lot of the synthetics and binders from product that's already in the market.
Oh, wow. So how did you did you start this company, or did you come in, when it was already founded?
No, I'm actually one of the founders, and
very cool.
I come from 2 naturopathic physicians, and I guess you can call our house the nuts and seeds home from birth.
I love it. Lucky you.
Yeah. And my partner, he suffered seasonal allergies, and every time he would take product that was already on the shelf, he would visit a doctor, and the doctor would express to him that it happened to be that a lot of the byproduct that was in the product was what was causing the allergic reactions. A lot of us don't realize that medicine is taken for the medicinal purpose, and the medicinal purpose of a medicine is, a much smaller percentage than all of the binders and the parabens and the dyes and the food coloring and the, everything that comes along with it.
Oh yeah, wow. So working for this company, obviously you have different products and different product lines. Can you tell us a little bit about what they are and maybe what some of your favorites are?
Yeah, so we have 11 products, 3 products for children and 8 products for adults. They range from addressing sleep to stress to allergy, cold, Calm Keeper. Our 2 products that everyone really enjoys are our sleep and our stress product. They really help, and the stress product is really to help relieve stress and in an environment that seems to be a bit stressful right now more than others.
Yeah.
And then Calm Keeper is really for children, to help them, calm as well. And we carry one of the only organic arnicas on the market, actually the only organic arnica on the market, which is really just it's kind of a breakthrough in the space.
Wow, yeah. So let's talk about your stress relief product in particular. And I guess obviously your cold crush products are for, you have a children's one and you have an adult one, and that obviously has a very specific purpose, much like, a medicine. But with the sleepology product and the stress relief product, do those operate more like supplements, something that you would take every day? How do they work?
They do. So the stress relief one you would take more like a supplement. But you would follow the drug facts on the back and basically take 2 every 8 hours as needed. Sort of like you would take vitamin C or vitamin D. And then the sleep product would be right before sleep.
Got it. So what makes these different from supplements? Because you call them medicine, but what's the difference? Because to me, they're, your products are all non-GMO project verified. They're USDA certified organic. What's kind of that? I want to know kind of, why those things are important to you guys as a company and brand. Obviously, they're important to me and I'm sure my listeners, but, what makes it different than a supplement?
So the thing that makes it different than a supplement is the regulations. So the FDA regulates the OTC space. The OTC space is made up of synthetic drugs as well as homeopathic medicines, and that space is not like supplements. So supplements have supplement facts, and the drug space has drug facts that address drugs and are regulated as drugs. So because our medicines are homeopathic medicines, they're regulated as a medicine, and the supplement industry is different than the over the counter drug space.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much for explaining that. So, like I mentioned, your products are all USDA organic certified and non-GMO. Also,
and really, just to elaborate, if I can,
of course.
on those certifications, the idea was to really make something that was healthier. So, like I said, we take medicine from medicine. So the whole idea behind the organic and the non-GMO was, if we had to use, like a rice bran extract to help in the formulation of a tablet, that rice bran shouldn't have, GMOs, and it shouldn't have, a whole bunch of sprays on it from that wouldn't qualify under the organic system. So we really went with both those certifications to really help make sure that we were doing this as clean as possible, as safe as possible, and as healthy as possible. And from there, all the products are vegan and gluten-free, and we're also certified B Corp. I don't know if you're aware of what B Corps are.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So certified B Corps are really about a company that has to qualify and get a certification. It's companies like Patagonia, Honest Company, that really do. You're in the industry as a business to make money, but the goal of B Corp is to really look at a company and make sure that they're in business for the greater good of society. Meaning, you're making something healthier. You're giving back. One of the requirements is that you give back, which we give back to help with kids and clean water. So it's kind of, there's a whole bunch of tests that you got to do in order to get the certification, but it's becoming more and more of a respected certification for companies.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations on having that. That makes me love the company even more. Can you talk about what the Spread the Health campaign is?
Yeah, so that's what it is. So the Spread the Health campaign is on top of B Corp, and it's really saying that we want to do our part to help make the world a healthier place. So the Spread the Health initiative was created to provide clean water and health services for kids in need. So we donate to those organizations through Genexa.
Oh, I love that. Gosh, I just keep loving your products and your company more and more with every answer that you give. So you, like we were talking before we started recording, live in LA, but can people buy your products everywhere? What's the best way to get them? Tell me everything.
Yeah, so you can. We're available online at Amazon as well as our own website, and
I'll link that in the show notes too.
Yeah, and we'll offer a discount through your show. I'll just have to let you know a discount code.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and I'll put that right after this.
Great, and then we we're available in about 4,500 stores in the country. We're located in the GNCs. We're in Fresh Time Markets. I think there's one of those out where you are.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, Fresh Time Markets, Lucky's Markets. We're going to be launching into Whole Foods, CVS. So we're really, pretty much we're available. We're available throughout the country.
Oh, that's great. So convenient. Well, thank you so much for doing the podcast, for making these amazing products. I'm so excited about them. I'm so excited to try them. And I'm so excited to, keep in touch with you guys and keep sharing it with my listeners because, again, the company's doing the right things and focused on the right things. And it's great to connect with you. So I want to ask you my final question, and this is kind of a throwback because my blog, my podcast used to be called The Wellness Wonderland before I changed the name. So when I offer that term to you, David, to live in a wellness wonderland, growing up as you did with your parents, what does living in a wellness wonderland mean to you?
Oh, wow. Living in a wellness wonderland, it just, it's about, just creating a healthier world and a safer place. And, Genexa was really founded to spread the health, and thank you for helping us spread it.
Thank you. This has been great. All right. I hope that you guys really enjoyed David as much as I did. He seemed like a delightful human being. And Genexa Health is something that I've gotten to try since that conversation. I love it. It's amazing. And if you want to try it, get the 15% off by using the link in the show notes and then also using the code Katie15 at checkout. That's Katie, Katie, 15, the numbers 1 and 5, and you can get 15% off. Let me know what you think. If you don't, need it, that's fine too. No worries. I just want to quickly thank our other sponsor for the show, Aptiv. You guys know Aptiv. You love Aptiv. They're, the Netflix of fitness classes. There's 100 plus fitness classes added every single month on Aptiv. You can choose medium, easy, hard. You can choose long or short. It's really fun. I love fitness classes. Maybe we could all do one together sometime, like a live fitness class, and we could all do it. And I don't know, that'd be fun. Anyway, the point is, if you want to try it free for 30 days, you can. Go to aptiv.com and then you enter the code, let it out. That's what you do. You guys know what to do. Anyway, all right, I love you. Before I go, I just want to tell you who's coming up on the show next week. It's one of my favorite people ever, again a repeat guest, but a fresh conversation with the one, the only, Jessica Mernan. It's over 2 hours for sure. I haven't re-listened yet, but I'm really excited to. I love her so much. She's just one of those people who feels like home, just cozy and nice. And anyway, you'll get to hear from her next week. All right, in the meantime, the emoji for this week's episode, I'm looking at one of my plants, one of my really beautiful plants. So one of my favorite emojis, it's actually the emoji in my Instagram, but it's just like a green, it's so hard to explain these because they're pictures, but it's green, it's a leaf. It's like the one that's just like, it changed quite a bit when they changed the emojis, when they updated them recently, but it's one of my favorite emojis. Just look at my Instagram. It's the one that says like my name and then it has an emoji. It's like a green, beautiful flower. No, it's not a flower at all. I'm sorry. It's just a plant. I don't know how to explain it. It's like a leaf. I love it. It's my favorite emoji of all the emojis. So that's the emoji to tweet at me, Instagram comment at me, just to let me know that you're still here with me while I'm rambling. It's very late at night right now. I'm getting a little bit sleepy, a lot sleepy actually. And I have to, go to a fitness class in the morning quite early. Not I have to, but I signed up and I want to go. I'm pretty excited about it actually. Okay, I love you guys. Make sure you tune in next week. Check out the sponsors if you want to. If you don't, no problem. It's just great that we have the sponsors because I love doing this podcast and they help me to be able to keep doing it. And thank you guys for being cool about there being sponsors. I love you guys. Join the Facebook group so we can talk more, and I'll talk to you guys then. All right, have a really great rest of your day, evening, morning, whenever you're listening to this. Bye.